you mentioned, why don't we go back there for a minute? You mentioned when you were 13, one thing that you said that always stuck with me, you wrote, once I was 12, I grew up fast. I had sex, I drank, I smoked cigarettes, I did drugs, I stole, I got kicked out of school. I was acting out, making my life as intense and unstable as I felt inside. Gosh, being 12 years old, you might have been struggling inside, but you were a pretty deep kid. I mean, you were really into art and music and culture and the world at such a young age, yet you felt like you were fighting demons so young. Why?
I was having a good time. It was, see, that's the thing. There wasn't a lot of sort of fighting demons so much. I mean,
you were struggling inside.
Well, I mean, I didn't, I had issues with, I didn't fit in the regular sort of like society in school, like that's
you were biracial, had black, long, white hair.
Right, long hair. I had a British accent when I was a little kid, so I tried really hard to get rid of it because that was like a standout kind of thing. And then around, like 12 and 13 years old, I just started, just sort of acting out, I guess. And then when I picked up the guitar, that was like all she wrote. I really sort of identified with something and became attached to it and sort of motivated.
We should point out the first guitar was from Grandma, right? A flamenco guitar with one nylon string.
Right.
How the hell did you play a flamenco guitar with one nylon string?
I think the thing that turned me on to guitar playing more than anything was actual riffs, like single note riffs. Oh. And so I would just learn them on the one string, And that sort of carried over into until now. Like I do still write on a lot of riffs that are only on one string, just because.
Let me pull a quote from the book here where you're talking about guitar. This was one of your first experience in exploring it. You said it was unlike anything I've ever done. It was a form of expression as satisfying and personal to me as art and drawing. He's a very good artist, by the way. But on a much deeper level, being able to create sounds that have spoken to me in music ever since I can remember was more empowering than anything that I've ever done. A lot of people look at guitar as an enjoyable thing to play. It's fun to make music. Why was it so empowering for you?
I think, wow, this is so serious.
Don't worry, we'll get into the non-serious part. There's a lot of players here.
It's a long answer, really. I mean, because as a kid, all sort of, the school curriculum, all that stuff aside, I was raised in a very sort of musical kind of family. Now, no one played any instruments, but we were in the music business.
Well, your dad designed album covers, right? Long costumes.
Yeah. And my grandpa was a painter, my dad's a painter, and so there was a very sort of artistic freedom. It was in the, I was born in the 60s and in the early 70s, and it was all about artistic freedom. That was the whole movement, So, I was raised on great music. I mean, my parents had probably one of the best record collections, personal record collections I've still to this day ever seen. So I had all this great music, and I was moved by music. It was normally very quiet. So I never have been very expressive emotionally. Still to this day, my wife hates me for that. But with the guitar, I could say all kinds of stuff. And I found that it was my sort of emotional outlet to be able to just crank up and be able to sort of, as an expression of what the music is talking about.
And your mom would take you to concerts, and you'd be around a lot of musicians because she was designing costumes for them. I mean, from the Beatles to Joni Mitchell to Flip Willis, right?
And Pointer Sisters, everybody.
That's wild. And you said it just being around the music and the soundstage, it had sort of a magic on you.
Yeah, I was fascinated with, like going to rehearsals or going to like Joni Mitchell sessions and seeing the whole process of people just with instruments, just seeing instruments sort of in their own environment and people using them and playing and all that kind of stuff and excitement of a rock concert and all that. I never put my finger on it, but I definitely was fascinated by it.
You say that the sight of a guitar still turns you on, and I share a little of that. When we came up the escalator, there's the guitar display out there in the industry area, and it's just you sort of are captivated by that whole thing. I mean, you've got so many guitars, you've been playing for so long. Why does it still turn you on?
I think the same reason that girls still turn me on.
How does Perla do with that?
She loves it. We keep a guitar at the end of the bed in case I need some imagination.
What do you imagine?
This is a quick joke. Yeah, something about the guitar that is just innately sexy. And it's still to this day, when I told them the guitar case, it's still that sort of sensitive.
I can't remember who it was, but somebody said the very shape like a woman.
Yeah, it's a common guitar player sort of identification thing. Yeah, it's definitely sort of the top. Well, especially with the Les Paul, because you've got the sort of breast at the top.
Speaking of Les Paul, Joe Perry was struggling. Brian, he was selling some of his guitars.
Right.
You bought his Les Paul for what, about $8,000?
In 1959, Les Paul.
One of two Tobacco Sunburst 1959 guitars that were ever made, Les Pauls that were ever made. And I was familiar with this guitar because as a kid coming up, you started to identify with your rock stars and what instruments they used. And he had this one Les Paul in all the pictures that I just thought was the best looking Les Paul. So years later, it was 1989, we just finished a tour with Aerosmith and gone on to Japan. I got a phone call from LA saying there's this guy selling this guitar and says you might be familiar with it. It belonged to Dwayne Allman and Joe Perry. And it's 1959 now, so I know the guitar. And I said, well, send me some photos to my apartment. And so when we got back to LA, I had this envelope, and I opened it up, and it was Polaroids of the guitar. That's back when they still had Polaroids. And there's a recognizable nick to this guitar that I knew from my years as a rock fan. And then it was the guitar, so I bought it for like $8,000.
That's amazing. 59 Les Paul for $8,000. Market value today would be over $1 million.
That guitar would be very close to $1 million.
And you gave it back to the economy, sort of screwed.
There's the twist is that, Joe was struggling and they needed money, and years later, you gave him his guitar back.
Well, it's not as novel as all that.
Oh, that was your book?
No. Well, the way it happened was I offered to sell it back to him originally. That was back in 1989, and he didn't have money in those days. But when the guitar was originally sold, it wasn't him that sold it. It was his wife. He was on the road somewhere, and he was very sort of druggy Aerosmith, we all know and love, right? Anyway, so it was a bitter thing, and so I offered it back to him, but he couldn't afford it at the time. So over the years, he'd come up and go, hey, I'd really like to buy that guitar back. I was like, nah. And so, I'm offering it, and he'd be like, oh, no, I'm too busy right now. He'd be pissed because I didn't take the offer the last time or whatever. So finally, at the end, I forgot what year it was, but like in 96 or 97, 98, somewhere in there. It was his birthday coming up, and I thought, I would get it back to him. So it was a nice gesture, but it put a huge dent in my collection.
Not to mention, because we never needed money.
Right.
As you said, that guitar's probably worth close to $1 million. Let's take us back to 1988 when nascent Guns N' Roses was on tour with Aerosmith. You were the opening act. And about halfway through, things started to change. What was that year like for you?
That's like when you as a kid, and sort of dream about playing in front of a huge audience, and that's hard to verbally explain, but there's definitely a fantastical thing about all that. And you start, as an opening band, like we're talking about the first Canadian tour, where you're just this band and everybody shows up to see, and you sort of struggle along that way, and all of a sudden you're doing these concerts where the audience is actually reacting, the place is full when you get on stage and you're the opening band, and you don't really put your finger on it, but the reason that they're there early is to see you and they're really into your record, and you're suddenly being discovered on a massive scale. And that's really the dream, sort of like coming true. And it was weird because I didn't know that they were coming to see us. I just thought they just happened to be showing up early and they heard Paradise City, but there was really sort of this snowball effect where we turned into as popular a draw at that particular time as Aerosmith was. And it was just a great double bill. It was also the discovery that we had arrived.
You mentioned Paradise City. Actually, the lyrics weren't supposed to be what the lyrics became, correct?
Well, I mean,
my version?
My version was in the spirit of the song because we were having such a great time, and writing that song was taking down to Paradise City where the girls are fat and they got big titties.
Do you think it would have gotten any radio play if you kept those lyrics?
No, probably not.